So the third one is what we're going to call tone policing. Okay. And in tone policing, you're going to have ideological moralism, Christian political correctness. You're going to avoid the substance and attack the deliverer's tone. They're going to get you on procedure. So when we do these videos with, say, Marsha and Debbie, you'll see people in the comments saying, did you go talk to them personally? And I'm like, look, they tried to talk to them for 5 years. Cinque años. Okay. I'm not speaking Spanish, I'm speaking Italian. I'm probably doing that wrong too. But 5 years. 5 years. So instead of actually addressing what you're saying, instead of listening to the video and seeing what a horrible fool this clown is, they're like, did you go talk to him? All these Karens show up, okay? Tone policing, a bunch of Karens, okay? Same kind of people that tell you got to wear a mask during COVID. At our house, we call them face panties. You got to wear your face panties during COVID. Same kind of people that just love to make other people wear them. They just love some reason to make people do things and make people do things a certain way, okay? You're doing it wrong. And so what they want to do is they want to put all kinds of procedural red tape. Well, we want you to meet with the deacons. Oh, you didn't do it right. You have to go to one person first, then two, then take a friend, and then you bring it before the deacon board. Then you come over here, and then we'll bring it up before the church next Tuesday. You know, there's a song about that. I woke up and went to church one Sunday. And then he says, and I stood up and told the congregation, something about he smells of smoke. So, or he smells smoke. So he's like, I stood up and told the congregation, there's a fire here, so everybody run. And they said that the point well put in a timely suggestion, and we'll bring it up at the very next meeting of the Board of Deacons a week from Tuesday. I don't know why. It's just church policy. At the First Nazareth, Baptist, Costal, Seventh-day Orthodox, Lutheran, non-denominational Church of Our Lady of the Mind. And then the next week it's something else. A tornado. And they're meeting in a tent. And then the next week they're having an open air meeting on the ground. And then he says he hears the trumpet sound and it's the rapture. And they said that's a point well put in a timely suggestion, and we'll bring it up at the very next meeting of the Board of Deacons. That kind of thing. In other words, the point of the song is that you have so much process in place that you're absolutely useless and meaningless. And so you'll find if you were to talk to Marsha and those guys, what you would find is, and what we covered, is that they just invent all kinds of procedural red tape to stop you, to dampen you, to stop you from having the opportunity to say what you're saying, to get you to attrit, to quit, and to just basically make it impossible for you to make your point to any audience that would ever matter. Especially when they're in the middle of lying about being a Calvinist and they're being called out on it. And then they'll accuse you're accusing God's anointed. Don't receive an accusation against an elder. They'll try all this kind of stuff. So what is tone policing? They'll do this a lot. I have this thing in my notes. A tone argument is a type of ad hominem argument aimed at the tone of an argument instead of its factual or logical content in order to dismiss a person's argument. Ignoring the truth or falsity of a statement, a tone argument instead focuses on the emotion with which it is expressed. So they're basically like dogs. You get a dog, and if it's all about the tone when you're talking to a dog. You could say, come here, I'm going to give you a treat, and it's going to be wonderful. And they're going to cower and, hide from you in the corner. But if you say, oh, come here, we're going to go out back and we're going to shoot you in the head, and they'll just come up and wag their tail. They have no idea what you're saying. It's all about how you're saying it, okay? And when the tone police are basically devolved down to the level of animals. And we have some people at this channel sometimes, they think that I'm a little too harsh with my language. I come across too harsh. I would share your videos with people, but you're just too harsh on the Calvinists, and I can't share it because of your language. Your friends are dogs. That's the problem, okay? Now, I'm a retired military officer. I've been deployed twice, and I'm used to having to talk to infantrymen, soldiers of all different kinds, medics who have, put their friends to bed with a shovel, lawyers, doctors, dentists, firemen, policemen, people who actually live out there in the real world who need to hear things straight. Okay. So that's the kind of people that I'm used to having to talk to. And this, people, snowflake generation that grew up tending to house plants, barefooted and all this kind of stuff, it's weird. And then they want me to be all kind and gentle for them. Okay. Well, you just change the channel. Just go somewhere else. Okay. I can make a couple recommendations. There's some other anti-Calvinism channels that are out there that you'd probably love, but it's not going to be here. Okay. So if you're if you've got the same problem as a dog and you need it to be toned a certain way, just go somewhere else. Okay. You're not going to get that kind of stuff here. We're not going to do that. So the tone police argument is not a good argument. So what do you see? You see a dismissal of an emotional response. You get dismissed because of an emotional response. You're too angry or emotional. Or you called me names. Or are you suggesting I'm not saved? It goes back to this idea of Christian political correctness. Now, the biggest problem with Christian political correctness, the big cardinal sin, is that you're not allowed to suggest or hint at all that someone else's Christianity might not be genuine. Now, I agree that you should not automatically, that's another thing, no true Scotsman fallacy, okay? I agree that you should not use that as an argumentative ploy. But when it comes to examining data, for example, and we say, well, the gospel in Scripture is this, and what you are preaching is not the gospel or is the opposite. Now, if they deduct that means they're not true Christians, I don't care. I'm still not going to hold back from saying that. Some people will hold back from saying that clearly because they're afraid of what people will deduct from it. And so I don't agree with using the no true Scotsman logical fallacy as an argumentative tactic. I think that's childish and dumb and stupid, and don't do it. But at the same time, Paul was in peril among false brethren. There are, devils walking around making themselves out to be angels of light, and he's afraid that, in 2 Corinthians 11, 3 and 4, that you're going to give yourself over to a false spirit and a false Jesus. So it is possible to be swayed, to be wrong, to be following the wrong path. That kind of stuff is possible. And if we can't suss this out, which I don't think we have any discernment these days, I'll have to do another video on what discernment really is. Accusations of hostility. Why are you being so confrontational? Accusations of causing division. I don't know why I don't have this one in bold. You're sowing discord among the brethren. You're causing division. Well, let's talk about the division just for a second. You need to understand what I'm about to say. Because whenever the division and unity thing comes up, unity, we need to all get together. That is usually spoken by people who are trying to get something over on you. They're trying to use procedural sophistry to get you to align with something you don't agree with and shut your mouth about it. That's usually the ploy. Now, we are for biblical unity. But when somebody is calling for unity, they're usually up to something that isn't good. Okay. And then on the division side, this goes both ways. They'll both quote both sides. They'll both quote the verses that say you're supposed to have unity, and then they'll both quote the verses that says Jesus says, "I am not come to bring peace but division. I'm not come to bring peace but a sword." And then Jesus says something in John 7 or wherever, and it says, "And there was a division among the people because of them." See, holy, righteous, spiritual people, they cause division. Well, which is it? You see? So here's the deal. Expression of divergent thinking, it means I think differently than you, will always cause division and bring opposition. Always. Doesn't matter who you are. This does not mean that the divergent thinker is correct. If you're over there in, in Tibet, and you're with a bunch of Buddhists and you start doing Buddhism a different way, if you're with a bunch of Muslims and you start doing Islam a different way, you're going to draw opposition. It doesn't mean you're correct, you see? Divergent thinking brings opposition. And just because you bring opposition because you think differently than the group does not mean you are correct, doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean they're right. Okay? That's the point you need to understand. The next thing is all propositionally reductive ideology, all of it causes division and factionalism. All of it is 1 Corinthians 3, 1 through 4. I'm of Paul, I'm of Apollos. Are you not carnal? There's divisions and fightings among you. Why are there envyings and strife among you? James chapter 4. Okay? All propositionally reductive ideology, Calvinism, provisionism, whatever ism you're part of, causes division and factionalism. All of it. This does not make any of it true. It does not make any of it false. It's just a characteristic of propositionally reductive ideology. That's what happens with stagnant water. It suggests that it's a poor, what it does suggest is that it's a poor modality of relation. That propositionally reductive ideology, in other words, you have to agree with this statement of faith in order to join this church. That's propositionally reductive ideology. That is a bad modality of relating to people, of having an in group, because it always results in further factionalism, witch hunts. And we've showed the chart many other times of there's 30 bad things that always happen from propositionally reductive ideology. So genuine mature unity, it is non-ideological heterogeneous coherence. Non-ideological heterogeneous coherence. So ideological is if you are a Calvinist or a provisionist, something like that. Non-ideological means you're meta-paradigmatic. You're not beholden to any particular paradigm. You can operate outside them. You can put them on, take them back off, not be emotionally or egoically attached or identified to any of them. Okay? Heterogeneous as opposed to homogeneous. A Calvinistic church, they're homogeneous. They're all the same. They all think the same way. They have to believe the same doctrine. Well, true unity can have coherence while you're heterogeneous, but you're also meta-paradigmatic, you see? You can't be paradigmatic and heterogeneous and have coherence. You have to be non-ideological, meta-paradigmatic, and heterogeneous and have coherence. And that's what mature, genuine unity looks like. So this whole thing about you're causing division, you're sowing discord among the brethren. Well, any kind of divergent thinking is going to split things up. And if you're the stealth Calvinist pastor, you're the one who's actually splitting things up. The other people are just calling attention to it. And the thing that you think of as unity is a faux virtue signaled unity. It's just as fake as the Christian political correctness. And then they're going to have appeals to politeness. I'd be more inclined to listen to your argument if you weren't so impolite. I think I was supposed to say weren't right here instead of were. Typo. If you weren't so impolite, I'd be more inclined. And this is often mixed with gaslighting. Like, for example, you may be perfectly polite and genuine and sincere, but frank and straightforward, and they're just going to accuse you of being impolite. Hello? Anybody had that happen? Yes. It's called gaslighting. What is gaslighting? Gaslighting is like when you're being accused of something that you didn't really do or aren't really doing, and it works on you so much to where you're like, what if I really did do that? You start to question, you start to doubt yourself. Last time we talked, you called me stupid. No, I didn't. Well, after they say that 30 times, they're like, well, what if I did call her stupid and I just don't remember? What if I was impolite and I just, what if they're right? You start to question yourself. That's how gaslighting works. Okay. And so what they will do is they will accuse you of some kind of interactive impropriety, oftentimes that you didn't even do. They may not like something you said, and they're going to assign it to something else, like you're impolite or something like that. Then they're going to have minimization of your concerns. Oh, you're blowing this out of proportion. You're making such a big deal out of this. You, Debbie, you just won't quit talking about Calvinism. Why you got to make such a big deal out of this? They'll say you're making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be. They'll focus on your manner of expression. We could take you more seriously if you didn't sound so angry. And you're like, well, I don't sound angry. Just saying things. My wife, Paula, she's a very frank person. She likes to slice and dice the facts and then say it exactly how she sees it. Well, people who are used to being coddled and ta-ta'd all the time, that's shocking to them. That's like they take that as abrasiveness when, like, we're used to it. We give each other like straight up forward cutting assessments all the time because we're dealing with the facts and we're trying to optimize for time, and here's how it really is, and we're trying to get things done. Well, when somebody who's being coddled and ta-ta'd all the time gets something told to them straight, they think, oh, he's so angry. No, I'm not angry at all. I hit my go fast button because we're trying to get something done. Here's the facts. Deal with this. Sort it out. Have it on my desk by 9 a.m. Whatever.